Hi there guys, Tom Quayle here. Hope you're all doing very well as ever out there. Today I'm checking out some fantastic pedals by the guys at Gamechanger Audio. Been a big fan of this company for a while, ever since I did a video for sound effects in Ormskirk for their light pedal. I was kind of blown away by the technology that these guys are coming up with, and the Auto series of pedals that they've sent here. They asked me if I'd like to check these out. These are really, really innovative, combining some kind of Euro rack style synth kind of thought processes, if you like, with standard guitar pedals. So the Auto series here, we've got three of these pedals. There's a reverb, a chorus, and a delay. And to all intents and purposes, if you get rid of kind of the crazy levels of technology that we're going to talk about shortly in the Auto kind of sense, these are really fantastic sounding pedals, DSP obviously. And there's a lot of options with them. So the reverb, for example, has a hall, plate, and spring built in. All sound absolutely fantastic. The chorus gives you access to a standard chorus, an ensemble, and a flange as well, with a crazy level of audio rate modulation in there as well. So if you want crazy, that is going to give it to you all day, every day, and you can get subtle as well. The delay gives you analog, digital, and tape delays, and again, they sound absolutely awesome. So if you're just looking for a really high quality built, kind of innovative delay, reverb, or chorus pedal, these really do fit the bill very, very well. But there's so much more than that as well. These pedals take kind of Euro rack style modulation technology based on patch cables. So that each pedal ships with a bunch of different patch cables. And in the center part here, outside of these two control panels, you will find these holes for the patch cables. And essentially what these allow you to do is use your pitch or dynamics. You can see all of the pedals have these pitch and dynamic controls to modulate in real time any of the parameters of the pedals. So for example, on the reverb, you can modulate using your pitch or tone actually, and your dynamics, all at the same time, the level of the reverb, the tone, the decay, and the filter in this case. On the chorus, you've got level, depth, rate, and feedback. And then on the delay, you've got level, tone, repeats, and time on there. And any of those can be modulated again using your dynamics or your pitch or the tone of your instrument, which is kind of insane. So all you would do is patch between either the pitch output to whichever kind of control you want to actually modulate, and it's as simple as that. So we'll get into that. That's the really innovative bit, but how do they sound first of all? Well, they sound fantastic. So the way I've got this set up here is I'm running these as outboard gear in stereo via my audio interface. So I'm actually plugged into the quad cortex to make this easier because that's a stereo unit. That's then coming out in stereo via my audio interface into the first pedal here, and then it's running stereo all the way through back into my audio interface, and you're just hearing the signal from the pedals in stereo. Of course, you can run them like standard guitar pedals into the front of your amp as well, or in an effects loop in mono too. Now, just quickly before I play through these, each of the pedals has a three-way level selector. So you can have instrument level if you're plugging direct into the pedal via the guitar. You've got line level, which is what I'm using, and then Euro rack level, which is great because these can be combined into a Euro rack setup, and you'll see why using control voltages or CV inputs and outputs to actually control the modulation of the actual pedals themselves. Again, it's like nothing I've ever seen on the guitar market before, but it's definitely something you'll see if you're into synths. Okay, so as well as that, just to give you the idea of how the signal path is working, you'll see this little weird device here. This actually is a unit that comes with the pedals, and it's basically just a splitter. So my guitar is going into the bottom of the splitter here, and then coming out the top, just straight through to the quad cortex. But there's this little DI out here via another patch cable that's going into one of the inputs on this first pedal. It's called the tracker input. So when I play, you can see these LED lights on here are lighting up. So the left one here is the level of my signal, and the right one on each of the pedals is the pitch. So you could see there as I was playing up through that line, the pitch was going up, and as I play down, it's able to track my pitch as well, and that's how it can actually send out control voltage data or modulation data to each of these controls to actually modulate them, and we'll go through that shortly. So that tracker output is sending a clean signal into each of these pedals. And you can see I've got these little patch cables going between each of the pedals to send that tracking data, basically. You don't have to do that. If these are in front of your amp, you can just plug straight into them and then go straight into the amp, and the tracking data happens just via the standard input. This allows me to have a distorted sound with delay, reverb, whatever, from the quad cortex or any other pedals, and still have clean tracking data. So just DI straight into the tracker. You can also use that for like, you know, any other instruments like synths or whatever. These pedals work great with any kind of instrument. They're not just for guitar. Okay, so with that said, you've just heard the clean signal, by which I mean it's no delay reverb. They're not running through the effects here. So let's start with the reverb. Again, fantastic sounding. At the moment I'm on the hall. You switch just via this little switch just here between plate, spring and hall. Got quite a lot of decay on here. Awesome sounding stereo reverb. And you can go from cavernous, so if we increase the decay here, and again we're doing nothing with the modulation here, this is just straight effects. Let's increase the mix. That is a beautiful sounding reverb. So the guys at Gamechanger Audio have nailed the DSP side of this for years now. Their spring reverbs are beautiful. These reverbs are absolutely awesome, these DSP-based reverbs. So let's just switch over to the spring. So a nice boingy spring, if I just increase the decay a bit more on the level. You can really hear it's a spring. Very, very nice indeed. And then a big, thick, warm plate. You can hit a low end on there. So, as well as that, they've obviously got the tone control and decay on there and the filter. So, if I want to filter out some of that low end, I can bring the filter up. And now I've got a brighter sound with less low end on there. The tone is really shaping the high end of everything. So I could filter out some of the low end and then bring the tone control back to tame that high end. Let's switch back to the hall for now. Massive, awesome sounding reverb in stereo as well, which is great. You do have this switch just here, which allows you to go from mono through to 50% stereo, then 100% stereo spread, and I'm in stereo here. That's what you guys are hearing. Okay, so that's the reverb. Just bring the decay and the level down. Let's move over to the chorus. You can see I'm switching these pedals on and off using the on switch here. We'll get to this auto switch later. This is where the really crazy fun stuff happens. So the chorus, as I mentioned, has a chorus mode, an ensemble, and a flanger, and you've got 3 selectable waveforms. I'm just, for the sake of simplicity, because there's so much to go through in this, I'm going to keep it on the sine wave, but you do have an up ramp and a down ramp as well for your waveforms. So let's turn it on. Got the feedback off at this point, and this is just the chorus. Okay, so you can get into insane rates of modulation here in terms of the chorus. As you increase it, it gets into pitch-based territory. So if you want crazy sounds, you can do that with these. If you want kind of more subtle effects, you can do that too. Modulating this control using the pitch and the dynamics, it starts to get just wild what you can do with this. It's crazy. So if we switch over to the ensemble just really quickly. Slightly thicker, warmer version of the chorus. Let's add a little bit of reverb back in, sorry. Without and with. Then moving across to the flanger, if we increase the feedback here, we start to get into proper kind of flanger territory. And again, that can get as crazy as you want it to. So that's the chorus. We'll turn that back off again, switch back to chorus mode. Now my favorite, the delay. This is an awesome sounding delay. And again, I'm running this in stereo, but you could run it in mono or 50% stereo if you wanted to. This is in full on stereo ping pong mode. You do have, as I mentioned, tape, analog and digital delay as well. And then this left switch, as I say, turns between mono 50% stereo and 100% stereo. So turn it on. This is in the tape mode, and it sounds fantastic. Let's take out the reverb. Now, when you modulate this, it's really crazy. Again, like we'll do this in real time using the patch cables, but imagine being able to do that based on your pitch of your playing or your dynamics of your playing. It's super, super, super cool. We also have, as I mentioned, the analog delay, which gives us a bucket brigade delay style with kind of like repeats that degrade. Sounds wonderful. Really, really wonderful. And then finally, we've got our pristine digital delay, which obviously is a really bright sounding exact copy of our original signal. My favorite is the tape delay, so we'll stick with that for now. So now you've heard the pedals, let's talk about the reason why these exist, the reason they're so unique, and that is the modulation possibilities of these auto pedals. Now, you'll see in the middle here, we've got this weird patch bay thing. And if you've ever got into Eurorack's or synths, you'll be fully aware of what this does. Basically, this allows us to take the pitch and tone of the guitar, one or the other, and the dynamic level of our signal, and use it to modulate or change in real time these basic parameters, okay? So you'll see underneath each of these controls is a mini control, and it's notched in the middle. And what's going to happen is, when I set this either positive, if I set it to a positive value from that center point, it's going to add the amount that I've set here to my existing control. If I set it negative from the center point, it's going to reduce the amount of that control by however much I've set on this mini control. And again, they're notched in the middle, so they're very easy to kind of figure out. The way this happens is we take a patch cable, and let's say I want to control the amount of modulation that's happening or the amount of change in real time based on my pitch. So where on the instrument I'm playing. What we have to do is, on each of these pedals, we have 2 pitch outputs and 2 dynamic outputs, and the pitch doubles as tone as well. So on this reverb here, because it's the closest one to me, it's the easiest to get, I'm going to plug into pitch output 1, and I'm going to plug that into the input of my reverb level control. Okay, so that's now patched, and that's the reason these are recessed. These patch bays here are recessed, because it allows us to get the patch cables in without damaging them when we're stomping on the pedals. Okay, so now my pitch is linked to my reverb level. I could link it to anything. I could link it to decay or filter or tone or whatever. Okay, but in this case, it's linked to level. Now, what I have to do is I have to calibrate on the device the pitch that I want the pedal to recognize to cause this change. Okay. So I'm going to bring the level down here, okay, and the decay up. So I have to calibrate it. There's a really easy way to do that. What we do is we hold down the on switch, and then we play a note on our guitar. I say it's easy. It's actually difficult when you've only got 2 hands and you're not using your feet for the pedals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tap this D at the 7th fret of the G string, and that's going to become my center pitch, and that's what's going to control the modulation. I'll explain how in a second. So I hold this down, and you'll see just really quickly the tracking data that's coming in. Via this cable just here, it's tracking my pitch and my dynamics. And you're going to see on here on this LED, it's going to calibrate and understand that I've played a D. So if I hold down on and play the D, you can see the LED went green, and that now is my center point pitch. And here on this pitch control, we can ignore the dynamics for now. On the pitch control, I've got this equals sign. You probably see it better over here, equals. And we can go negative and positive. So we'll explain that in a second. Now what's going to happen is, whenever I play this D, it's going to take the level of this control here, and it's going to, the level literally, it's going to send, when I play the D, what's called a control voltage down this cable that's going to add whatever I've set here to the level. So we're adding here. I could subtract as well. I could send what's called negative CV data, or just modulate backwards if you like, or down. In this case, we're modulating up. So we're adding level to the signal. So we're going to get more reverb when I play a D. Any other note, we're going to get less reverb at this stage. So we can test this out. If I play that D, and if I turn everything on, sorry, I have to turn on the pedal and the actual auto switch. If I play that D now, we get this massive reverb, and if anything, that's a bit too much really, so I'm going to bring the modulation down. If I set this control to the middle, nothing's going to happen, because we're not doing any modulation. Likewise, if my reverb was set high, and I modulate it, so now when we play a D, or any other note, we're getting plenty of reverb. If I set this control, the modulated control, down, so we're removing level when we play our D to send the control voltage. Now when I play a D, we're going to get no reverb. If I play any other note, we get reverb. That's the D again. Now that is insanely clever. It's doing pitch recognition, and it's only sending this control voltage. Because we played a D when we calibrated it, it's only sending the control voltage when I play that D. It could play it anywhere on the guitar, but it's sending control voltage. And it's modulating by the amount that we're setting here. So what I'm going to do is, again, set the level to 0 and increase the modulation here. Now at the moment, it's only modulating when I play a D. Okay, that's not that useful. It could be very useful, it depends, but I think there's a more kind of pertinent use to this, which is we've got this plus and minus here on our pitch. So what we can do is we can set a range of pitches above or below our center pitch. So I've set a range of pitches above here just by adding to the pitch control. So what's going to happen now is if I play below this D, we're going to get no reverb. As soon as I get to the D and above, we'll get reverb now. And in fact, too much reverb because I'm clipping. Now when I get back down below the D, the reverb disappears, which is super, super cool. Now likewise, I could do a negative range, which is now below the D, and all of my low notes will get reverb. My high notes will get no reverb. Now, I can control the rate at which it changes from reverb to no reverb by using what's called the ramp. So in fact, a really easy way to show you this is if I set this back to just D, so only D is triggering the reverb. At the moment, if I play another note, you can hear it quite quickly fades away, the reverb. So we're modulating from this position to adding this much very, very quickly. However, if I hold down this control and turn the pitch up, you see this yellow bar increases. Now we've got a longer ramp time between the modulation that's happening between these two. So if I play the D, we get our big reverb. Now when I play another note, it will slowly fade the reverb out. It's less abrupt. So that's very, very cool. Really, really nice feature. And again, you could do this with a range of different pitches. Now we also have, as well as that, the ability to modulate any of the other controls, of course, by using patch cables. We could have the second patch cable modulate, let's say, the filter. So if we come in and we say, okay, pitch output, I want that to go to the filter. But what I want to do is as the reverb gets bigger, I want the reverb to get thinner and brighter. So at the moment, what we've got is, if I set this control Here's our filter. It's already quite bright, and I'll set the modulation to 0. Let's add a bit to the filter. So now when we play this D, we get this lovely thin reverb, okay? But let's say we want to have a range of pitches. So let's do this. So there we're actually dropping out that filter modulation as well as we play the lower notes, which is really, really cool. The possibilities for this are pretty much endless. It's insane what you can do with this, and you can combine all of these different modulation types together. Let's just take out that second modulation to keep things simple at this stage. By the way, this works for all of these pedals. It's exactly the same principle. Okay, now let's take the second mode, which is tone. I'm not actually going to demonstrate this one, I just want to talk about it. So down here you have a three-way switch. The tone kind of algorithm, if you like, allows you to change modulations using control voltage data based on the brightness or darkness of your signal. So for example, I could calibrate a really dark sound. So if I go like this with the tone control, very dark sound, I could calibrate to that. So if I hold down, okay, it's now measured how dark my signal is. So again, I could increase my level based on the sound being bright, okay? So if I switch to a brighter sound, now we get more reverb. If I switch back to a darker sound, there we go. The reverb has ramped back out again. Very, very clever indeed. And again, the possibilities here are just down to your imagination as to what you think you could do with that. V per octave allows you to set specific note ranges where you'd set your center pitch, which would be D. Let's do that one more time. And then you can set so that as you go higher from that note, we get more and more reverb the higher we go, or more and more filter the higher we go, or less and less reverb, or more and more decay the higher we go. So for instance, if we now switch this over to decay, so we're in the pitch mode, output 1 into input 1, sorry, just the input of decay. And if we set the decay very, very short, but we're adding decay on as we go higher. So now we need to ramp up our pitch. We also need to increase our level here, so we've got some reverb. Okay, so now as we play, you can see that the higher we went there, the more decay we've got. So as we come back down, now that's very cool if you want to keep the reverb kind of lower down for power chords and things, less intense. So if you've got really, really cool. And again, all of these examples are just using one patch cable at this point. Imagine the possibilities. You could even patch between pedals, which is kind of insane. So that's all the different pitch modes. Now let's talk about the dynamics mode, which is on the other side, and you can combine these two, but for the sake of argument, what I'm going to do is just remove this patch cable to keep things simple, and we'll talk about dynamics. So again, with the dynamics here, let's set this in the middle, and now it's ignoring pitch because we have no patch cables plugged in. We still are in the V per octave mode, we've still got the pitch calibrated, so on and so forth, but unless we've got a patch cable plugged in, nothing's going to happen. Okay, so let's take a patch cable and run from dynamics output 1. Again, let's keep things simple and run into level input. Now let's turn the auto mode off and set a sound as a bass sound that we like. That'll do. Okay, so we've got quite a big sort of hall reverb there with a reasonable decay as our basic sound. Now we have to calibrate the dynamics, just like we calibrated the pitch. And the idea with this is to find out what the maximum output of our guitar is, or close to maximum. So we hold down the auto switch here and then play something at a decent volume, and that will calibrate what our threshold is. All of these are stored, by the way, on the pedal, so when they get turned off, you don't have to do them every single time. They're all stored on there when you power down. So I'm going to hold it down and just play like a strummed open string. And there we've set the calibration, okay? Now you'll see this center point line, and I can change where that is, so the threshold of my dynamics. If I go above that dynamic level, so above that, you'll see here, I'm going above that dynamic level line, I'm going to trigger modulation. It's going to send CV data out of here, or CV control voltage out of here, and it's going to do the modulation that I've got set here. It's going to increase or decrease depending on what the control's set to. So I'm in my level here, okay? If I set it negatively here, what it's going to do is decrease the amount of dynamic threshold, so I get modulation more quickly, effectively. That's what that's going to do. So we'll keep it on equals for now. Okay. At the moment, this switch down here is set to one of three envelopes. We've got fast, then we've got rise and gate. We'll get into those in a minute. What we're going to do at the moment is we set the level kind of low, and if I exceed the threshold, I'm going to add this much modulation. Remember, we're in the center point here, nothing will happen. Doesn't matter how loud or quiet I play, I'm always getting the same amount of reverb. So we'll bring this down. Now we have to turn auto mode on. And when I play louder than the dynamic threshold, you can hear very, very quickly we're getting reverb coming in there, okay? Now I want the reverb to last longer, so what I have to do is hold down on this switch here and dial in more of a tail, a release on that reverb. Now we're getting the effect that we want. So this envelope shape down here that we're on is called fast. It's an immediate attack as soon as you strum, and then the reverb is going to be modulated by this amount via the control voltage. Then it's going to decay until we get back down to 0 again. And this is because we're dealing with dynamics. So we're over the threshold, and then as soon as the sound dies away, we're under the threshold again, and the control voltage stops being sent. And that's controlled via the release parameter here. So we hold it down, just like the ramp that we had on the pitch. Make that really long. Now we've got a much longer reverb. But if we don't exceed the dynamic threshold, it's going to be tricky at this point. We're going to increase it. If I keep playing softly, there we go. So now I'm no longer over that threshold and the ramp has died away. So we get no reverb. If I play loudly. Okay, so we'll set the release to standard. No reverb. Plenty of reverb, and we get it in that kind of way. Now we've also got this rise here. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us a slow attack and a slow release. Hear the way the reverb kind of did this kind of motion. It slowly rose in and then faded out. So both of these modes are good for kind of like chordal playing, where you start out quietly. Then for the big chord at the end, you might want the big reverb. And again, you would tailor this to taste, basically. So that's how that works, essentially. And imagine, again, the possibilities there for, you know, tailoring your sound as far as the dynamics go in terms of modulation. We do also have a gate mode, which allows us to have a much shorter gate for like that kind of 80s style reverb, if you like. So that is basically the principle of how these pedals work and why they're so unique. Now, of course, this could be integrated with a rack system as well. And you can use, for the guys who are real nerds like me, you can use external CV data. So you could have like an LFO coming in here to modulate the level, for instance. You could use any external CV data. And then you can use the dynamics and the pitch to actually control like a gate, whether that CV data is actually doing anything or not, which is absolutely incredible. The other thing that's worth mentioning is you also have what's called an alt mode on here. It's the final thing I'll talk about really. And the alt, well, a couple of other things about power and build and stuff, but the alt mode, which we access here, allows us to effectively have two sounds built into the pedal without modulating. So the alt mode means that when we've got the patch cables plugged in, wherever these modulations are set, once we press alt, those are hardwired in. When we press auto off, they are no longer there. So for example, it allows you to set two presets if you like with the pedal, which is kind of cool. So an example of that might be, let's set two presets with different amounts of decay. So I'm going to change this over to decay here. And what that means is that effectively when let's have a really short decay in the non-alt mode and a really long decay for the alt mode. So if we turn it off now, set that even shorter, relatively short decay. But if I go into alt mode, now we've got a much longer decay. They have to be patched together because what it's doing now is it's permanently sending CV control data through this whenever I press the alt button to do this modulation. As soon as I turn it off, here it goes straight back again. So that's really, really useful. And you could actually patch between pedals this way. So I could actually patch through so that when I press the auto switch on this, it actually controls the delay pedal, for example, which is super cool because they're all receiving the same CV data and they're all sending the same CV data, which is, kind of data, which is super cool. Other things to mention really quickly before we finish with this, because I think that gives you an idea of what they're capable of, but the possibilities are just down to your imagination. You can hear how great they sound. Power. I'm using a Joyo power supply here, which is sending 500 milliamps out of each output, which is quite unusual. They do require more power than your standard center negative 9 volt, sort of 100 milliamp, because of the nature of them. But you can also power them via USB, which is super cool. So even a standard USB wall wart will power these. It's USB-C, which is amazing, which also does firmware updates as well, which is great. And they're built ridiculously well. All solid metal construction, really great quality knobs. Again, that center indent on the little mini knobs, which are really easy to use. The patch cables are all braided. The controls here are non-latching, which is really, really nice. So they feel really great to use. And yeah, just generally built like, again, a bit of a cliche, but built like a tank. They sort of look a bit like, some kind of tank. It's pretty awesome, really. And they look really unique on your pedal board as well, which is cool. So they're very, very nice. They come with all the patch cables as well. And I'd recommend having the little splitter box as well, just to make things as nice and flexible as possible. So yeah, if you want to check out more information on the Auto series of pedals, I know this has been a long video, but if you're still with me, if you want to check out more information, click the link down below to get over to Gamechanger Audio's website. Check out the manuals because they have a whole different section on like different patch combinations for getting creative, and it'll give you some ideas as to where to get started. Again, the world is your oyster here. Just, whatever you can imagine, you can probably create. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. If you did, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and of course, hit the bell notification icon to make sure you never miss any more of my content. And if you do want to support what I do here on the YouTube channel, check out the links down below for all of my lesson material, my app solo, all the usual stuff. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.